It's time for another quick take, ladies and gentlemen. Rafael Nadal is your 2017 U.S. Open champion. He smokes Kevin Anderson 6-3, 6-3, 6-4. Congratulations to Rafa. I always start any post-slam final video with a congratulations. For some reason, I've been accused of being a Rafa hater. I don't know where this comes from, but I truly believe he is the hardest working player on tour, and he is class personified in every way that I can think of. So congratulations to Nadal. No one deserves it more than him, and he's had his fair share of heartbreak in recent history. He's lost, finals on hard courts to Djokovic at the Australian Open, at the U.S. Open. He's lost to Stan at the Australian Open, in finals. So finally, he gets one, and it's really, really great to see, and I'm very happy for him. And of course, congratulations to Anderson as well. A great run by him. So let me now get to the match. We are live once again, which means as I'm talking about the match, which is how I'm going to start the video, think of things you want to ask me. Think of things that, any opinions you may have, and I'll let you know what I think. And you don't have to just limit it to the match, because there might be kind of, I guess, a limit to how much there really is to go over in this match. You can ask me anything about tennis in general, about the rest of the season, whatever, okay? So that'll be after I'm done kind of analyzing the match, like I normally do. Okay, so starting the first set, I want to start with this, actually. These matches are way harder to break down than other matches, because this is your typical, and I don't mean to disrespect Anderson, because the dude was in the final. And if you're in the final, you're in the final, you had an awesome run, and you deserve to be there. But this match kind of felt like maybe a fourth round match. And these are matches that I don't usually go on YouTube and talk about, because it's almost like you're tempted to be like, hi everyone, Nadal is better than Anderson, which is why he won in straight sets. Goodbye. So, it's kind of hard. You got to dig deeper to really analyze these matches. When it's two more evenly matched players, normally it's a little bit more interesting to look at things, where physically or tactically, or something that happens in big moments in a really tight match, you look at these things and you say, okay, that's why that player won and that's why that player lost. In this particular matchup, I think Nadal's going to win, 10 out of 10 times. The head-to-head, and it doesn't always work like that, the head-to-head is now 5-0 Nadal. But there's still things to talk about, so let's get right to it. So in the first set, immediately, Anderson's service games were very, very long, very, very grueling, very tight. He had to save a lot of break points, and Rafa's service games, they were a breeze. So there was an immediate, contrast in levels here. I thought that Anderson was doing some of the right things. So the first thing is he was attacking Rafa's forehand return. And it worked a little bit in the beginning, and, but by the end, Rafa really keyed in on the return. Now, my prediction for the match, and you only would have known this if you follow me on Twitter, which you should, it's @GillGross with an underscore, 2 L's. I thought that Anderson would actually win a set in a tiebreak. I thought that maybe he would be able to hold serve for an entire set. But once Nadal, and I thought it would be the first or the second set, but then I thought Nadal would key in on the return and really start to dominate the match. It really didn't take long, though. Nadal immediately keyed in on that return. But Anderson was doing a good job of, it's hard to say this. I would say he was doing a good job of playing first strike tennis and attacking Nadal. And Nadal's court position was way, way back behind the baseline. It was really at the fence. It was maybe 15 feet back behind the baseline. No joke, no exaggeration. So Nadal's game plan was to just get that serve in play. Just get it in play. And use the speed, use the wheels, use the defense to grind out some breaks. It worked tremendously. Anderson, I believe, was under 10 aces. I looked for the stat after the match, and I couldn't find it. But I know he was at 8 aces late in the third set. I believe Anderson was under 10 aces. That is a testament to Rafa's return game. So his game plan was to hang back, and he was on his heels at the start of most return points. He started off the point on his heels, but his wheels and his legs, his athleticism, and his defensive racket skills are at such a high level right now at the U.S. Open that, he was able to showcase that and kind of get his way back into points and wait and force Anderson either get back into the point and turn the point around and take the offense, or extract errors out of Anderson. And Anderson made plenty of unforced, easy, simple, unforced errors. So that was Nadal's game plan. I thought immediately that the biggest key for Anderson would be the volley and the drop shot. That's the way, you combat a player in Nadal who's a very, very fast player, standing 10 feet behind the baseline. It's going to be so hard to hit it by him. You're not going to be able to hit a lot of clean winners baseline to baseline. Nadal's too far back, and he's too fast. So what do you got to do? You need to approach the net, and you need to finish at the net, and you need to incorporate the drop shot. The player who's had the most success against Nadal this year, especially on hard court, is Roger Federer. That's all he would have done in this match. It would have been, by the way, I'm not saying Federer would have beat Nadal. Don't twist it. Because the Nadal fans, they're very hard on me when I say, when I accidentally say something negative about Nadal. They're very, very hard on me. So I'm not saying that. I actually think Nadal would have beat Federer in this tournament. But what Federer would have done, you would have seen a lot of drop shots, and you would have seen Federer at the net. Because that's what you do against a player who's 12 feet behind the baseline. Anderson just isn't that skilled at the net. He finished some easy volleys. He missed some easy volleys. He missed some difficult volleys. Nadal hit good passing shots sometimes, but he was not very efficient at the net. Decently efficient, not atrocious, not terrible, but not good enough. He needed to live at the net. That he needed to force Nadal to move up and improve his court position. And I say improve, but not really improve, because it worked back there for him. Nadal won 16 of 16 net points. So Nadal was better at the net than Anderson. Then again, 16 of 16 is pretty hard to beat. In terms of Nadal's defense, which I just kind of talked about, but just to go into more detail, he looks like he's 25 again. It's unbelievable. And I talked at length about, it's not just his legs, his absorption of pace at the U.S. Open. And Anderson and Del Potro, sort of similar this way. They're huge hitters. They hit the ball, with massive, triple-digit ground strokes on the regular. They both hit huge. The absorption of pace that Nadal had on display is something that he hasn't been able to find on the grass courts since the last time he won Wimbledon. He hasn't been able to find that level of pace absorption. But on these hard courts during this U.S. Open, he got it to that clay court level where it didn't matter how hard you hit the ball. He had a brilliant reply for whatever you throw his way. So in the first set, let's see what I'm missing. Anderson also double faulted 4 times. And you just can't do that. Anderson obviously needed to play the perfect match. It wasn't. It wasn't the perfect match by Anderson. So at 3-all, 30-40, Anderson shanks a mid-court sitter forehand. And I'm looking at that, and, it was a 10 out of 10 shot, let's just say, for Nadal. It was like a 95% shot for Nadal. The mid-court forehand that Anderson missed at break point. So that's where you just have a skill gap between Anderson and Nadal. And when you miss shots like that on break point, it's just an example. You have a skill gap there. Nadal wouldn't have missed that shot. Maybe 5 out of 100 times he would have missed the shot. But, Anderson missed it. Nadal broke again at 3-5, so that was the first set. Anderson, another thing I talk about with him is his lack of creativity. And what I mean by that, you had a good example at 2-3. It was another break point. So we're on serve early in the second set, and Nadal, his toes are about 2 inches away from the net. 2 inches! He almost lost the point because he hit the net. You gotta see that. You gotta lob him. But Anderson's just not that player. He's got such a huge serve. He's got a great technical forehand, a great technical backhand. He's pretty consistent off both wings. He hits it big from both wings. He's so positive, which I'd like to maybe talk about a little later, his positivity. But he's not creative. And you have to be. So he should have lobbed there. He didn't. Nadal easy put away volley. So there's the break in the second set. By the end of the second, Nadal got to Anderson's legs. Once Nadal keyed in on the return, then Nadal could really start to, he really started moving Anderson around the court and really toying with him. Because there's a skill gap. He also used his slice well. Nadal started using his slice really well in the second set. Nadal's not known as really like a creative player like Federer is. He's not known as a cat and mouse player, but that's a mistake. He should be. The only reason Nadal isn't known as like a really nifty creative player, drop shots, lobs, is because he's so good at kind of winning long, animalistic, grinded out rallies. He's so good at smacking forehand winners from 5 feet behind the baseline. But when it comes to drop shots and lobs and drop volleys and cat and mouse points, Nadal he's impeccable. So, figuring out things like short slices, that's big for Nadal. Third set, more of the same. Anderson just wasn't getting much from his serve or anything. And that's really all I got. Those are mostly my thoughts on the match. Anderson's positivity, it's really cool to see. That's a big part of his resurgence. He was injured all of 2016, and oftentimes when you have an injury, like Federer kind of reset physically. At the end of 2016, he had a physical reset, and all of a sudden he came into Australia and his back felt great and his legs felt great, and it was able to put the mind at ease. It was certainly mental, but it was definitely a physical reset for Federer, and it paid dividends. For Anderson, it was a mental reset. He used to be very stoic. He used to be quite negative, and he saw a sports psychologist, and now he is. I don't know. I haven't seen anyone that positive before. I really haven't. So some people might think it's obnoxious or over the top, but if you're a young player, I'd do it. I'd emulate that. I really would, because your opponent, if you are fist pumping after every single point, your opponent is going to pull their hair out. And some people might think it's bad sportsmanship or whatever, but you got to do what you got to do to win. It's completely within the rules. And Anderson's not obnoxious about it. He doesn't make eye contact with his opponent and say, scream, come on, or anything. He keeps it to himself. But you feel that from the other side of the court. Even when you're winning, it's much worse when you're winning. When you're losing and the other person is fist pumping, you kind of get it. It might fire you up. Then you come back with a fist pump of your own. But when Anderson was down, down a break in the third set, 2 sets and a break down, and he won a point at 15 all. And if he won it on his own terms, there was a fist pump. And that kind of, that can psych out a more inexperienced opponent, or even an experienced opponent. It can let them know you're still there and not let them feel too comfortable. Not let them open up their shoulders as much as they may otherwise. Make them feel like it's a close match. Make them feel nervous, because if you go out there looking dejected and if you have poor body language, there is nothing that's going to settle down your opponent quite like that. So that's my take on Anderson's positivity. So that's all I got. I want to look at some comments now. Let's see if there is some good questions here. Ask me anything, really anything. Let's see. Anderson was a poor man's Del Potro. So that's actually interesting. I think that Del Potro, that's as good a warm-up as you can get for a match against Kevin Anderson. Once again, the defensive skills of Nadal, way too much to handle for, a player in Anderson who relies on finishing opponents, with ground strokes from the back of the court. It's just not going to work, unfortunately, for Nadal. Anderson had 10 aces in total. Thank you, Sabine. I might mispronounce her name. Let's see. Anderson won. Anderson's first serve percentage was just 59%, out of which he won 73%. Nadal did. He really keyed in on that return, as I thought he would, but I thought it would take longer, and it really didn't take very long. It took about, I thought he missed some forehand returns early, but I think, by the end of the first set, he was reading Anderson's serve really, really well. What Anderson should have done, well, he can't. I say he should have done, but it's really not in his toolbox. But he could have serve and volleyed more. And I think he tried, and he made some mistakes on the serve volley. But when someone is that far back, you have to serve and volley. How about 2017? The Australian Open is going to be such a hard tournament to predict. Just because, we really won't at all. We'll have no idea where Murray and Djokovic will leave off at. We just won't know. There's no way to know. Now, for Djokovic, I thought it was a very, very ugly, 2017, especially, when it all went down at, basically when he pulled out at Wimbledon. Just, it was mucky. There was off-the-court issues. There was on-the-court issues. There was, his motivation being brought into question. So very, very ugly. So for Djokovic, I think that there are a little bit more questions going into the Australian Open. For Murray, it was just there's not much he can do. It was a simple hip injury. And, we see a lot of these in modern tennis. There's a lot of hip rotation, more ground strokes than ever. So, for Murray, it wasn't as ugly. It was just a hip injury. It happens. So, for the Australian Open, I like the idea of a well-rested Federer. I think that the Australian Open, Federer can make a habit out of that being a tournament that he does very well at because he's so well-rested. So, right now, there's Federer, there's Murray, and there's Nadal. And I'm going to say that Djokovic, I'd like for him to prove that he's back. That's my take on 2017. He could come back and Djokovic could win the Australian Open. It's a plausible result. But I think I'm going to give the nod more to, as the favorites, I'm going to give the nod more to Nadal, Federer, and Murray. Let's see if there's anything else. All right, nothing else. So, like I said, this wasn't ideal. This is a harder match to break down for me because of the skill gap. But anyways, hope you enjoyed the whole tournament. It was craziness, okay, with the bottom half of the draw. But there were a lot of feel-good stories. And then I thought we got some really, really great drama. Del Potro provided us with great drama, whether it was the team match, whether it was the Federer match, and Rafa Nadal with his first hardcourt title since 2013, his 16th career Grand Slam title, his third career U.S. Open title. So one more time, congratulations to Rafa Nadal. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.